Chizi. Stories for any time of the day. For today's story, we're going to be going to the Bible and we're going to be retelling the story of the 3 Hebrew boys. Now, some of you may recognize this story as the fiery furnace. It's a really great story and I can't wait to share it with you. So sit back and relax and let's start this journey together. Let's begin. There once was a king called Nebuchadnezzar. Can you say that with me? King Nebuchadnezzar. Yes, and he was the most powerful king in all of the Babylonian region. Now, because King Nebuchadnezzar's empire was so big, he needed some help. There was lots of people chosen from different nations where King Nebuchadnezzar had conquered and taken over. And they were all chosen to come and help him rule his large empire. One day, King Nebuchadnezzar decided to call all of the rulers of the land together in his presence in the royal pavilion. And he watched them gather one by one. And this was such a special occasion that no one, absolutely no one dare not to come. The king stood up. The great moment had arrived. And you might be wondering, what's this great big moment? What's arrived? And the trumpets blew their horns. And so the herald went on to say, all people, all nations and all languages, hear the command of the king. And then he went on to say that the king has made a gigantic statue and it's in his own image. The statue was 90 feet tall. Do you know how big 90 feet is? 30 meters. 30 of these is how tall the statue was. It was huge. Everyone, at the sound of the cymbals, at the sound of the music, everyone was to bow down and worship the golden statue. Anyone who does not bow down and worship the golden image will immediately be thrown into the fiery furnace. And so when the musical instruments played, everyone fell down and worshipped the golden image. 2 rulers were worshipping together when suddenly one of them saw something that made him tug the other's robe in order to get his attention to look. 3 young princes, the rulers of the capital city itself, were openly disobeying the king. Can you imagine? Boris Johnson wouldn't disobey the Queen now, would he? These 3 men had been brought as captives from their distant land of Judah. And their names had been changed by King Nebuchadnezzar. And because of their abilities, they had been given some high-ranking positions. Now, although King Nebuchadnezzar had changed their names, their hearts had remained the same. And they believed in God. And bowing down to an image is something that God had told them never, ever to do. And so the 2 rulers hurried down and didn't waste any time getting to the king, as they wanted to report what they had seen. They wanted to report the 3 rulers who were called Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. King, O king, These three men are rulers of the great Babylon. Yet they refuse to bow to your statue. How dare these men disobey me? Bring them here at once. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were hurried to the king's presence. And when they arrived, the king asked them, "Is it true that you did not bow down to the golden image?" And they said, "Yes, it was true." The proud and mighty king Nebuchadnezzar decided to give the men a second chance. And if they bow to the image, he truly would forgive them. And so the brave young men replied, "Our God is able to deliver us, but even if he chooses not to, we will never serve your gods or worship the golden image." The king was furious. He said, "Turn that furnace up 7 times hotter than it's ever been before, and take Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego down to the furnace and put them to death for their willful disobedience to me and my commands." Now it wasn't long before the furnace was made 7 times hotter than what it usually was. And the 3 young men were securely tied and one by one thrown into the furnace. And once the soldiers had finished throwing them into the furnace, they had to turn and run because the heat was too much. But the flames leaped out of the blazing furnace and burnt them to death. And then the king saw something that immediately made him jump to his feet. He could not believe his eyes. Forgetting about his dignity, the king ran with the rest of the people. He wanted to get a better look. "Look!" shouted the king. "Do you see what I see? But didn't we throw 3 men into the fiery furnace? And they were tied up. But I see 4, and they're loose and walking around. How can this be? And the 4th man looks just like the Son of God." King Nebuchadnezzar knew in his heart that the Lord God was the true and living God. And so he called for Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to come out of the fiery furnace. The people couldn't believe their eyes. They were amazed. They were in shock as the 3 men walked out of the fiery furnace. No hair scathed, unharmed. They didn't even smell of smoke. King Nebuchadnezzar fell to his knees and cried out, "Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who delivered his servants who trusted in him." And shortly afterwards, a decree was read to all the nations under King Nebuchadnezzar's rule. And it said, no one, absolutely no one, should speak against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were promoted to higher places than they were before. But their real happiness was in their freedom to worship God. The end. And so what can we learn from this story? Well, it's very clear. When we stand up for God, no matter what the situation, he will always be with us. Our key text for today is Isaiah chapter 43, verses 2 and 3. And it says, "When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And through the rivers, they shall not overflow you. And when you walk through the fire, like the Hebrew boys did, you shall not be burned, nor shall the flames scorch you. Just like he protected Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego, he can protect us in no matter what the situation, as long as we stay true to him and true to his word. Thank you for listening, and thank you for spending your children's story with Storytime with Aunty Chizi. Make sure to check out all the rest of our stories on YouTube. See you next time.